morning, everyone. In its quest for equipping the student community towards facing the challenges of a result-oriented industrial arena, the Vinod Gupta School of Management, IIT Kharagpur, is privileged to host Mr. Gopal A Iyer, Associate Director, Talent at EY GDS, for its online leadership talk series, Vakya. With over 17 years of experience in strategic management and talent acquisition, Mr. Iyer currently leads the GigNow program at EY GDS, which functions as a talent marketplace that matches contract workers with gigs at iconic organizations around the world. A prestigious alumnus of the Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode, he is a renowned speaker in various HR forums and is known for his revolutionary insights on topics like the future skills in the world of HR, the future of work, the rise of the gig economy, the relevance of current skills, and how the business and talent landscape will change by 2025. Thank you for taking out time for us today, sir. We are really excited to host you today, and we hope to learn unforgettable lessons on developing our skills as freelancers, building our online presence, and developing our personal brand to ensure that we're ready for the challenges ahead. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's indeed a pleasure to be part of this prestigious forum. I think I couldn't have asked for more in terms of the time that I got to prepare for this, but also in terms of the kind of people I'm going to speak to. I know it's not an easy time for a lot of us, given all that is going on in the country, in the world, with regards to COVID. I just thought I would share some of my insights based on what I've been telling all those fellow student communities. That has been extremely helpful. And of course, some insights on what is the world of work going to look like in 5 years and 10 years down the line, and what are some of the things that you and I can do differently to be able to be ready for that, right? So just give me a few seconds while I pull up the PPT. Let me know when you are able to see the same. Can someone confirm this, please?
Yes, sir. We can see it.
Perfect. Perfect. 1 second. Does it show as a full screen, or does it show as a smaller one?
It's showing the next slide window also on the side.
All right, all right.
There is in presenter mode.
Yeah, 1 second, 1 second. Now it should be okay, I'm guessing. Now it's coming as full screen?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right. So what are we going through right now? I think it's extremely important for us to know what situation are we all going through as a nation, as community, as humanity, I would say. It's not an easy one. I think quite a few things are happening around the world with regards to COVID. It's unlike all other prior challenges that the world has seen in terms of be it economic crisis, be it social crisis. COVID, in a way, is very unique, and I don't think other than 1912 or 1920, when we had similar pandemics, we had seen something like this in our living history, right? So I think whoever is alive today probably not afford to claim that he or she has seen something like this in their living times. So it started off as a very humble, small, local issue, which then became a national issue for China, and then it became an international issue. And not only did it have an impact on health of individuals, the after effects in terms of what came after in order to control the pandemic was a lot more economical crisis as well. So in a way, it's all in one crisis, which we are all going through. As a result of this, we are seeing quite a bit of challenges in terms of industries going through a recession right now, resulting in unemployment across the world, and the 23.4 percentage of the number that you see is probably just going to be rising in the near future as well. 25 million plus jobs. Could everyone go on mute, please? Yeah, 25 million plus jobs could be lost worldwide as a result of COVID-19 is a report as we see it in the International Labour Organization, isn't it? So what is this going to have an impact on? So when we went into lockdown on 22nd March as a country, we saw quite a bit of things really shutting down, right? I mean, aviation, transportation, trains, hospitality as a sector, manufacturing as a sector, and a lot of other sectors that took direct hit and immediate impact on their businesses as well. And some of these impacts are not going to be for temporary. It's going to continue for a while till we get vaccine or till we get a solution to somehow kind of probably get treated. And I think though the treatment is happening, the number of cases in country across the world, India, especially now with what has happened ever since the lockdown was removed, has been a reason to worry for a lot of people. So this has had an impact on temporary business closures. Customers have gone away, like aviation or hospitality or transportation. Probably people are not buying anything or not traveling as much as they would have done in the past. There is high demand for a lot of things, but a lack of supply at times as well. Example would be in the manufacturing sector. And probably if you see FMCG as an example, there are a lot of things that are not getting manufactured like how it was in pre-COVID. And I think that would continue to be the case in terms of supply chain related challenges. A lot of organizations went directly on remote. A lot of organizations and industries were not prepared for remote working. A classic example was banking or any of the manufacturing organizations. And they were just not, I mean, imagine a manufacturing unit can never be done out of remote working, right? Because our systems and processes are not designed to be able to factor that piece, which was a challenge for a lot of folks in the world as well. Consumption level fell drastically, and I think you would probably agree to this in terms of uh, if someone were to tell you that do you want to buy a particular product which was more like a discretionary spend for you, you would rather say that probably no, I would rather defer this till the next year or maybe even beyond. A classic example, a direct hit probably is in the automotive sector. Like people were buying cars in the past, probably today they may want to hold off their investments because there is so much of uncertainty, and probably with the lockdown the way it is, it will continue to create challenges for all of us in the near future as well. Cash flow is extremely low. Liquidity is a challenge right now as we speak as well, and that's a direct result of the fact that a lot of people are losing jobs. A lot of units are closed, which means there is no revenue stream that is getting generated, and it is resultant of the fact that there is no activity or economic activity that's happening, which means the cash flows are lower. Manufacturing is probably at all-time low. Probably just in the last few weeks it is coming back, but it is no way closer to what it was in the past. This has resulted in increase in debts. So a lot of organizations picked up loans, and that's typically the practice, to pick up loans for manufacturing and then continue to look at ways to sell the products, and then the cycle continues. In the current scheme of things, with production not happening as much, the stocks are piling up because they're not getting sold. There is a case of revenue not getting generated, and that means that the increasing debt situation across all the sectors. How is it impacting you all as job seekers? And I think it's an extremely important one for all of us to know this really well, because um, a lot of organizations are going for a temporary hiring freeze. There was a hiring freeze on account of lockdown because we just couldn't get people onboarded. But even otherwise, given the demand supply challenges that we have, a lot of focus being on needs and instead of wants, people are becoming extremely cautious of hiring people today. And working from home in a lot of sectors became reality without even really we preparing ourselves for it. Forget readiness as well, right? And this is resulting into a lot of changes in the existing policies. New policies are getting rewritten in terms of including the work from home structure. Newer compensation structures are getting rewritten because today you don't have to spend that much time on conveyance as such, or there are, I mean, you probably have to include and factor in some kind of reimbursements for internet as such. So that continues to happen. And what all of this will also result into, and that's something that we will speak in the next few slides, is newer career opportunities are getting generated. So that's in summary the impact that we have seen of COVID in the last 100 days. So the future of work actually is changing, isn't it? There are technological advancements that have been happening, and this is not new. It's been happening for the last several years. There is change in work landscape. There are newer requirements of the work. There are newer policy. There are newer processes and newer service lines and offerings that are coming up in the industry. The skills that are required for you to be able to do that job are also evolving, because like how it used to be 20 years ago when we started our careers, or I started my career rather, or 50 years ago when my parents started their careers, they required very different kind of skills. We require very different kind of skills, and you would require very different kind of skills as well. And the future of work includes the models of employment, which includes a lot of emphasis on gig economy and freelancing as well, and which is something that we will speak through in the next few slides. So where did it all start, and how did this evolve through to a situation as of today? Uh, Industrialization is not new. We have been seeing the impact of industrialization ever since 1784, or even beyond for that matter, right? I mean, even before that. But I think the organized industrialization, I would say, started in 1784 with mechanization or steam power, weaving loom industries being set up, which we call as industrialization 1.0. In 2.0, we saw mass production, assembly line, electrical energy being done in 1870. This is when the car manufacturing started. A lot of manufacturing, which involved assembly line manufacturing, was seen in 3.0, which is very recent. If you were to say, I think in the last 70 years, we've seen a lot of, or 50 years rather, we've seen a lot of automation, computers and electronics coming up. In the 4.0 generation, I think we not only saw mobile computing, we also saw cyber physical systems or Internet of Things. So not only was the focus on hardware or physical systems, it was also cyber physical systems, which means virtual computing that was seen. And I think we, in the last 10 years, from an India perspective, we saw a lot of this in terms of smartphones coming in, 3G, 2G, and 4G now, with broadband connectivity speeds up to 300 Mbps. The connectivity across the country being so better than how it was 30 years ago or 20 years ago when internet was just born, from ADSL to fiber nets across the country. This has given rise to a lot of possibilities and opportunities for a lot of us, which now also can be done at the click of a button, or probably at a click of your fingerprint, or finger rather, on mobile devices, which is where app developments have become so prevalent. A classic example that I would like to give here is the Uberization of the entire experience, I would say. So app development, I think when I remember, I think 2010, 11, the world was all about Blackberries as such. From Nokia, we migrated to BlackBerry, and we then suddenly shifted into two major uh, OSs. I would say Android as one and iOS as the other, and the devices that get paired to these became the game changer for a lot of us. There was suddenly a lot of focus on app developments, a lot of focus on businesses coming out of apps, and Uber is another example, a classic example rather, where I think if you were to think about life prior to Uber, it was all about you calling up a call center, booking your cab, and probably you had to give a lot of time of advance notice. So you couldn't probably book a cab right now. You have to wait for 3 to 4 hours before they would confirm the cab availability, and it was still all done through calls and not as much through apps. Uber probably was one of the first examples where they insisted that there would never be a call support and everything happens through app, which meant that we adapted to Uber technology or Uberization a lot more faster. And the world of app developments post that is a classic example of how the businesses have grown ever since. Zomato, Foodpanda, Swiggy are all examples of those, and we'll continue to see a lot more evolution of that in the coming days. So this was a question that I remember being asked several times by my parents. I mean, I asked my parents. My parents asked themselves and amongst their colleagues as well. We continue to ask these questions amongst our colleagues, and I'm sure this is no different even in the next few decades of future in terms of will technology replace skilled labor or redefine it? Isn't it? I remember my parents' story. My mom used to work for Indian Railways, Central Railways to be specific, and my dad used to work for an automotive industry and an organization. And it was, I think, somewhere close to 1985 when computers were introduced in these sectors, and there was a lot of, I would say, worry amongst the entire labor workforce to say that whether would this take away our jobs. And I think people who adapted to it really well, which meant that they took efforts to learn more about computers and computing and how to use desktop computers and what you need to do with typing, because typing was the only specific skill that was required to be able to do well in terms of computers. I mean, generation one computers, I would say. Uh, Adapted really well and did really well for themselves. But people who did not adapt probably were the ones who eventually found themselves to be not given the opportunities that others enjoyed. Uh, so adaptation is absolutely the key to anything that happens and anything that has happened, right? I mean, the last 100 days of the COVID scenario as well has taught us that how best could we adapt to this situation instead of resisting it. And I think the easier and the quicker we adapt ourselves, we were able to find a lot more sense in what we were doing. And I think that's what will continue to happen. So technology will never replace the skilled labor. It will complement it as much as I can say. And it will redefine in terms of experiences that we get out of computing overall, or any kind of digitization and technology. How did this happen? If I were to, again, my parents' example, everything that they did was probably on a book and a paper, or a format which was handwritten predominantly with stamps and signatures, and the only computing device that they probably would have used was a calculator. So I would say in their time, human to machine interface was somewhere close to 99.9% to 1%. Um, as the world progressed in terms of computerization, digitization of experiences, it continued to create an environment where the division of labor, which means the amount of time we spend on doing things ourselves versus how much we rely on computers, um, kept growing. And I think this represents a phenomenal data point for us to all realize that 2018 was 71 to 29. 2022, this is again a 2-year-old data. If I were to say from Future of Jobs report dated 2018 from World Economic Forum, uh, given the COVID scenario, which probably was not factored in, even today, I think we would already be at 48, 52. If I wouldn't be surprised, or even more. And COVID would have just ensured that anything that was a technology agenda for a lot of organizations for the next 10 years has now become a reality even now, right? I mean, so I would have thought that I would park funds for a new ERP solution, which I will do 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line. I would probably make sure that it happens like right away. So a classic example that I would like to share here is prior to March 22nd, uh, any organization that was hiring people was onboarding people physically. So they would probably book a room in a hotel or probably have a large space within their organization and have physical orientations, which meant that you have to completely manually drive the entire initiative, including the way people come to work, the way they are delivered their laptops, the way the documentation happens, the way sessions are delivered, the way uh, the joining formalities are done, be it bank coming in and opening up your bank accounts, all was done manually, and there was very little digital impact, except in the 9 hours of orientation, there could be probably 20% of content that was video driven. Today, I think technology and collaborative tools like Zoom, collaborative tools like WebEx and Teams have made it possible that we have to do only virtual onboarding, and every other process, be it on joining formalities, paperwork that had to be done, opening bank accounts, everything is digital. How did that happen? And all that happened, this probably would have required us 5 years worth of talking to the leadership and convincing them to be able to say we need to invest in digitization. But today, given that there was no other option, we had to do this pretty quickly. So I think 2025, 2030 would look a lot more digital in nature, which means that we all need to ask ourselves what skills are we equipping ourselves with in terms of digital skills, and organizations which have been born digital, the Googles, the Amazons of the world, are going to be front runners in terms of adoption, and a lot of other organizations who have core businesses which are into manufacturing or even consulting organizations have to convert themselves into an organization which blends digital so much so effectively that it doesn't really hurt them in terms of in the kind of work that they do for themselves. So how are we going to see, on what kind of roles or jobs that are we going to see emerging in the next 10 years, or what is going to be the focus is something that we will just quickly go through here. If you see data analytics scientists, general operations managers, AI machine learning specialists, I would say software app developers, big data scientists, digital transformation specialists would be some of the roles that you will see growing in most of the organizations. And simpler processes like data entry, accounting, bookkeeping, administrative and executive services or executive secretary work, client information, customer service workers are all going to be digitized. There are a lot of robots that are available to kind of get all of these work done. RPA is across all the industries these days, and they are always looking to find a way to automate processes, simplify it. And I think these will continue to, I mean, the list of declining jobs will continue to grow, and we all need to be in the look for what are the skills and what are the newer jobs that are going to be available in the next 5 to 10 years. And I would say continue to look, be curious, and look for what kind of roles that are being made available in the organizations these days. I think it will be interesting for you to keep a watch on that piece as well, right? So again, we spoke about this and gave my example of my parents, but uh, the physical and manual work and the basic cognitive work probably that was going to be, or rather was, the highest time consuming job will now kind of give way to higher cognitive or social and emotional intelligence and technological work in the next 10 years. And the amount of time that we will spend on creativity, complex problem solving, entrepreneurship, leadership, transformative leadership in terms of the work that we are doing, all will continue to be the focus for most of the organizations. And I think we all will be moving, and we have already moved in the last 100 days ourselves towards solving the future problems in a most effective manner, if I were to say so. Right? So, what are the evolving work patterns as a result of automation? Marketing managers that used to exist probably looking at supervising and take decisions. They probably will move towards marketing managers that handle data now and take decisions based on social media and web metrics. Which is why, if you see, the digital marketing as a skill is non-negotiable today. I'll give an example again, right? If I were to think about a job of marketing 5 years ago, where print media was still there and probably TV media was still there, uh, it made sense for us to take decisions based on cues that we were getting, which again was very skewed if I were to really ask, because you would never get to know the pulse of what decisions are being made by people, what are changing the behaviors of people, and what should you do to be able to make sure that you are entering into the right product segment. Amazon probably today looks at collaborating with all the other organizations wonderfully well so for themselves, and they look at click rate. They look at, okay, so if you were to go to Google today and search for I need a web camera or web camera just as a search field, now that data gets fed into Amazon, and when you next go to Amazon, you start getting all about web cameras from various organizations, various potential manufacturers, what price point, various level of I mean, so there could be 2,000 worth of web camera or 16,000 or 25,000 of web camera. Purely depends on what you want. And how does that happen? It purely happens on the basis of data sharing. So as they say, I mean, even Mukesh Ambani said this, that data is a new oil. What they do is they look at getting this information from various sources and look at creating solutions out of it. And marketing managers' jobs in the future would be all about looking at data, handling it really well, and probably use the social media information. Like if I were to then go and put something on Instagram or Facebook, and Facebook and Instagram both today do a lot of digital marketing for a lot of services, you will continue to see this pattern evolve. So now you can see how was a marketing manager's job 5, 10 years ago and what it is today and how it's going to continue to evolve, right? Similar is the case for science and engineering graduates, and similar is the case for accountants and clerks as well. What I'm trying to say is it's all going to be about how you are using the data that is being given to you. Either you purchase it, or you probably also look at readily available data through the open sources and make sense out of it and try to drive home the point, I would say. So, what will be more important in the future? The right skill set or right mindset? Would love this to be an open question. Would love to hear the points. What you, I mean, you can just type it down into your chat window. All right mindset, open mindset. Hmm. Great, great, great. Fantastic. I think some of you said skill set, some of you said mindset, but some also said both. And the answer is both, right? Um, if you think about our old ways of working, um, and how what was most important in terms of being able to get jobs, it was your educational qualification. So are you qualified to be doing something So let's say, are you a chartered accountant? So if you have the right qualification, and probably that's how you get the job. Um, the world today is moving towards the skills that you need to be able to do that job, right? So the skills meaning, do you have the right amount of skills for performing a particular role? Like, do you know how to drive a car, or do you know how to drive a train, or do you know how to fly the aircraft? And what proficiency levels do you have? And how do you develop that proficiency? It's by learning a skill, applying the knowledge of the skill, and contribute towards that skill building, and then become proficient in doing that. So you can start with a foundation level proficiency and then go to mastery in a period of a specific number of years. So skills are going to be extremely important. But as we are moving in the VUCA world, where the world is volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, it's extremely important that you have the right mindset as well. Because often what happens is, the skill set can give you the entry into any organization, but if you don't have the adaptive mindset, if you don't have the mindset to be able to get things done pretty quickly, and smartly, I think it will not give you the desired results. So the future of work and future workers should have the right skill set and the mindset both. And we'll see some bit of that in the next few slides as we speak about freelancing as a career proposition. So, rise of independent workforce. Now, if I were to really look at, I would like to share a story here, and that's my personal story, of kind. In a way, my grandfather was someone who was running a grocery store, and this was way back, I would say, 80, 90 years in the history, in a small town in Kerala. And he was running a store, and at that point of time, with no potential telecommunication system, the only possible thing, if I'm not wrong, was telegram. The way they would source things for them to be able to sell was only by traveling places. So he used to travel to various cities across India, including Andhra, Telangana, both were same at that point of time, Maharashtra, and he used to speak multiple languages at that point of time, and procure and source goods to be brought into a particular I mean his shop and being sold. Um, which meant that he had to spend a lot of time traveling and not being at the store himself, which meant others, his siblings were taking care of the store mainly. And he also was using a lot of independent workforce, if I were to say, to be able to do the work like lifting of goods, and probably doing some bit of cleaning, and some bit of accounting work of sorts. Everything was done through a pen and paper, or of sorts, until I think his kids started studying. They all went to school, and the eldest brother, or my dad's eldest brother, was the first one to move out of Palakkad, which is a small town in Kerala, to Mumbai, in pursuit of higher studies as well as starting to work. And gradually, all his siblings, including my dad, moved from Palakkad to Mumbai to get work. So they were all basic metric pass, and started finding jobs across various cities, mainly in Mumbai to begin with, and started working. So the kind of jobs between what my grandfather did and my dad and his siblings did was very different, right? I mean, my grandfather was a lot more open to doing a variety kind of work, but my parents, and both my mom and dad and the siblings, also did office jobs, which was predominantly in desk and probably required very limited level of traveling across. And they tried to build a skill for themselves in a particular field. Like my dad was an accountant. He did accounting for 42 years. My mom was also an accountant. She did accounting for 33 years of her career in railways. And I think the exposure both had was very different. So if I were to see the on-site need-based low flexibility, that's where I would put my parents in there, because they had to be in their office premise. They had to be working for a need that has arisen. For example, accounting happens only when there is an entry that needs to be passed because of an activity that has been done, an economic activity or an business activity. And if I were to now move away from that to somewhere close to 1992, when India opened up its door for globalization by devaluing the rupee and looking at ways of getting more specific work done for through FDI kind of sorts, gave a rise to a lot of private organizations to come in. And when privatization started kicking in, you started seeing a lot of specific differences in kind of roles. Uh, Marketing was given importance, finances were given a lot more importance, setting up newer businesses were given a lot of importance. But it also meant that a lot of people who were working in public sectors had to, or probably were given, option to be let gone off. So they took VRS, but they had to do something and they picked up freelancing. So someone started becoming an LIC agent. Some people became photographers. Some became columnists for writing in journals and newspapers, and some people became stenos, typists, and so on. And that's where we started seeing the first set of freelancing as such, because freelancing typically kicks in, at least in the historical perspective, when people have achieved certain things and they now want to probably look at doing something totally different for themselves, because they were either let gone off from their organizations or they took a early retirement of sorts. uh, 2000 is when Y2K happened, and as a build up to Y2K, a lot of organizations hired a lot of people within themselves, and when suddenly the bubble burst, um, it, it 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 kind of created a scenario where they couldn't really afford to keep everyone on board, so they let go of a lot of people, and only hired people on contracts, because they could only see next 2 years or next 3 years of predictability, and probably they had to work through the entire manner in which they could create a workforce which was a lot more flexible and agile, and they would probably only do contracting jobs. And a lot of organizations stemmed up at that point of time, which we also know as contracting firms, where their job was to keep people into their organizations and deploy them in different organizations as and when the need comes. A classic example of this could be, um, um, if I were to say in the IT scheme of things, it could be um, the staffing organizations. If I were to talk about manufacturing, and a classic example again, if you see a Britannia biscuit wrapper, you would see manufactured by Britannia, and there will be another address which tells which store is, or which unit is that biscuit manufactured in. And typically that is not owned by Britannia themselves. It's a subsidiary, or it's a unit which they have crowdsourced the work to them, and the biscuits typically are done in a smaller units and factories, I would say. So likewise, contracting continued to happen and will continue to happen even in the future. 2008 Lehman crisis, and the financial crisis that came after that is no different. 2020 with COVID is no different again. So remote, if I were to draw a difference between why COVID is very different than 2008 and any other uh, uh, events that we have seen in the past, the world is a lot more digital today. It's a borderless world that we live in. Honestly, like if I were to think about possibility of me coming over to Kharagpur and having this conversation, it meant that I had to pick up a flight and come down, spend a couple of days or 3 days at least between Bangalore and where I'm going to deliver this lecture, and probably only do it that way, where I probably would have spent a lot more time and effort to be able to come there and meet you guys and address this crowd, and share all of this what I'm sharing today. But today, with digital, the WebEx and Zooms of the world, I don't really need to go anywhere. I mean, I can sit like in my bedroom, as you all can see, and conduct this session a lot more freely and openly. and give the perspectives that I had to share, and with a lot more ease. And if you see, all of these collaborative tools also mean that I don't need to be in a particular geography, or in the client's office, or talking to someone physically to be able to run my business. And that's what COVID has taught us. And I think this, along with all the other aspects of the way the work gets done through the platform's collaborative tools, is a classic example of what potential gig jobs have. And it's all up to us now to be able to think slightly differently in how are we going to really look at jobs for ourselves, and what is it that we need to do differently to be available to pick up gig jobs or freelancing jobs. And we'll speak about all of that in just a bit. Um, yeah. So, speaking of contracting, or for that matter, any kind of jobs that used to get done, there was a work giver and there was a work taker, and the work used to get done. So, if you see the extreme left, the old ways of contracting was the work would be given from a particular organization to a staff augmentation model, and it was also only about resources per se, right? It moved away from looking at giving roles, which meant, um, I want you to be an HR officer, to I want you to now do recruitment, and in recruitment only do interviewing as a particular task, right? I used to start giving the specific tasks to the vendors and drive efficiencies through them. So there are a lot of RPOs that exist today, which is recruitment process outsourcing organizations, where they only do all about matching the demand to the supply and giving the right set of candidates to the organization. Classic example of that, right? Then it moved from that to also specific on, I want to measure you on success. So for example, I'll give you SLAs, which means if I were to give you a particular task, I need it by this time, I need it by this, in this format and this quality. And if you don't meet this quality, I would not give you the money that I had promised you to give. A classic example again is, if you think about Uber in the current scheme of things. If I were to book a cab now, if the cab comes, or rather, let's talk about Uber in this next half. If I were to order a pizza, if the pizza doesn't come to me by 30 minutes, I'm not going to pay you, right? And that's a classic example that I would like to give, where it was clearly a outcome driven business that I used to have with the vendors that I was working with. Come 2010, 2012, with a lot of digitization and platforms that were created, and GigNow, from an EY perspective, is one such platform, is a way where we engage with freelancers, crowdsourcing vendors and partners, independent contractors, where we give them tasks, micro tasks, subtasks, and it can be done in a orchestrated manner that human beings do not need to give that particular task or measure that outcome of that task or pay for that task. It's all done through platform. Again, here I would like to quote Uber as an example, where you download the app, you put the point A, point B, the from and the to location, the driver comes, the driver to passenger matching happens on the basis of credibility rating. You have a credibility rating, the driver has a credibility rating. Based on that, your rate per kilometer gets determined. The trip happens. During the trip, if there is an unpleasant experience, you can change the rating of the driver. Once the transaction is complete, you get dropped into a particular location. You pay the driver using wallets. It could be credit card linked to your app, or it could be payment wallets like Paytm, and the transaction is done. You again give a rating, a credibility rating, saying that yes, this person was a 5 star or a 6 star or a 7 star, and that's it. Now, if you were to think about the world of work moving towards this, the potential that you have is that you can work with several organizations, and it need not be an organization or a job dependent aspect that you need to think about. You're focusing on you as a product and your services as what you're trying to give it to the organization as what your commodity of sales is. Now, a classic parallel that I would like to draw here would be I am a marketing expert or I'm an expert in digital marketing. If my job is to create solutions for an organization that could have marketing solutions through the work that I do, how do I put a price point to it? And I could do the same kind of marketing services for 2 or 3 organizations at one go. I choose how much do I need to work in a particular day. I choose the price point that I would like to charge, and the organization or the work giver has the right to say, okay, I'm sure you're not trying to use organization A and B and their marketing strategies for me because they are my competitors. So as long as there is no conflict of interest, the work gets done and I'm paying you for the services that you're offering me. This gives the world a lot more potential to be able to earn themselves. And we'll talk about the mindset and the skill set that's required to be able to evolve to this level of working in just a bit. Any questions that you have so far? Just wanted to take a quick pause to see if this is all making sense. Anyone? You can unmute yourself if you have any questions. All right. I'm taking silence as no.
Sir, I think the questions probably might come at the end. We do not have
Sure, sure. Let me just move on. So, collaborative economy, right? It's an economy where we have people like freelancers, gig workers, solopreneurs, crowdsourcing channel partners, all coming and being part of an economy which drives everything through platform. And when I say platform, a classic example of platform is Amazon, right? Now, if I were to look at Amazon as a platform today and look at purely buying and selling as my two only potential goal, I could be selling my products on Amazon, some things that I may be manufacturing, and I could also be buying products that others are selling, isn't it? So if I were to take that as the fundamental premise of platform-based economy, gig economy is where independent workers come for short-term engagements. Now, a classic example of gig economy would be people who are coming in and doing smaller short-term gigs across various scheme of things. Like in my current organization at EY, we hire a lot of people for smaller short-term uh, projects that they can come and deliver their smaller short-term roles that they're coming and performing as well. Sharing economy is means generating money by sharing and renting out assets. Any classic examples that you can think of? You can type it. I think the key word here is sharing and renting out assets. Yep, Airbnb, Uber, WeWork, absolutely. Brilliant. Platform economy is use of IT systems to facilitate connect opportunities for gig sharing. Any examples here you would like to give? Yes. AWS, Azure, and a lot of them, if we were to think about. Peer-to-peer economy is where individuals directly transact business or cooperate in production with each other with little to no intermediation by third parties. Any examples here? Bitcoins. Yep. 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 Yeah, brilliant. Crowd economy is a dynamic ecosystem of productive people who participate through a platform with a purpose to achieve mutually beneficial goals. Any examples here? Yep. Kaggle. Any old example that you would like to take where platform was not driven? GitHub, yes. Uh, the older examples of this in terms of when digitization was not there, a couple of them, a classic example is Lijjat Papad, if I were to say. Uh, I'm just trying to give that name here is because, and even Amul in the olden days, is because I want to. I mean, this is not something that we are trying to do is new, right? I mean, we have been in this mode of working since a long time, and we have been in this model of workforce since a long time. Digitization has just made all of this a lot more easier and at a click of a button. And I think we need to realize that some of what we are hearing today is the newer or the next normal, but also as human beings, we have experience of dealing with some of these things in the past as well. So I think that's why I would like you all to be aware that nothing of what we are sharing today in terms of the platform-based services from a mindset perspective, at least, is very similar to what we have seen in the world already. We spoke about this, but more of this is a this is a way where the platform plays a huge role in enabling or connecting organizations to the freelancers. And now we will get into who is a freelancer. Now, anyone who is an individual person who's self-employed, seeks short-term assignments, jobs, not committed to a single employer for long term, is a freelancer. Typically engage with more than one company and based on the nature of the engagement and a contract is on a contract. And typically freelancer works remotely, managing time across 24/7 versus a full-time employee who typically works on an average of 45 to 50 hours or 40 to 45 hours as a standard. Uh, Now, gig workers are typically people who work for an organization again on a non-permanent basis, but they could be any of the following. They could be freelancers, they could be niche skilled professionals, they could be women who want to engage on a short-term flexible project, independent professionals, temporary contract workers, independent contractors, consultants, interns who could probably want to come and do flexi internships, and people with disabilities or neurodiverse talent as gig workers also is a possibility today, that was never explored in the past. And why is this gaining prominence? And I think it's extremely important for us to really understand the why of the crowdsourcing of or platform-based economy. Again, I'll take a small example. 20 years ago, if I were to think about going from one place to another, what were the options that I had? Probably I had an auto rickshaw, I had a bus, probably I may have had motorbike, depending on how what class of family that I belong to. And air travel was not that much open. I mean, the Indian skies were still very open in a way. Um, and I would probably avoid traveling, just probably spend time speaking to this individual on calls, so STD calls and all of that. But if I were to really think about traveling, it was probably taking an auto to the nearest railway station, travel by train. So vacations probably required to be 10 to 15 days because that's the only way that I could probably spend time with my near and dear ones. Then came a lot of influx of capital through the 1992 privatization initiatives, where you came. We got Marutis of the world, where they started manufacturing a lot of cars, and then came Hyundai. They started manufacturing a lot of cars, and we opened our doors to a lot more manufacturers like those. Uh, the loans and the liquidity made it a lot more possible for people to afford houses, loan, cars on loan at a much more economical price point. So a lot of people suddenly started buying cars and use that as the main mode of travel. And I think all of that was fine until 2010, 12, when Uber started its service, or radio taxi started their services, which made um, I would say automobile was growing as such, but the growth sector was different. I mean, the source of growth was very different. So having cabs meant that I have access to transport with a lot more ease than how it was in the past. And the digitization has, I think, I would say, clear the bottlenecks that existed in terms of me being able to go from point A to point B. And look at aviation as a sector, it did the same thing. I mean, opened up the sky to Air Deccans and Kingfishers and Saharas of the world, or Jet Airways of the world. And I think Indigo played a major role in the last 10 years, being able to almost connect every small potential city that was probably not connected in the past. And I think it it is all about how do I become a lot more accessible as an individual or as a service to the consumers. And if you would now relate all that you're seeing here more from a Uberization of the entire workforce standpoint, gig work is probably now gonna become an integral element of organizations willing to hire people, because at times the predictability that I have about my business is only for the next 2 to 3 years. And within the VUCA world that we are all living in, I need people with newer skills every 2 years. I need people with right set of experiences and exposures probably every day. I need people with the right people in the right location, and not really. I mean, I may need someone in Mumbai today, or Delhi today, but the person is sitting in Chennai. How can I get this person on demand whenever I need, how quickly I need? All of those were business problems, and I think with now the COVID and the remote working realities, gig work is going to gain a lot more prominence, because you can sit anywhere in India. But as long as you have a stable internet connection and a good laptop with a basic configuration that allows good computing, you can pick up work for anyone anywhere in India at this point of time, right? And I think that's the potential that we all need to tap into. And which is why the kind of people that organizations will hire tomorrow, and the kind of opportunities that you will be getting as individuals from organizations, are also going to evolve quite a bit. And I think it's up to us to really ask ourselves as to what are the skills that we have, and what are the skills that I need to develop to be able to be available for freelancing career as an option. And mind you, a lot of businesses, and we spoke about the impact of COVID on the business, a lot of businesses would want to really look at how can I keep my uh, business surviving in the next 24 to 36 months, and what are some of the skills and what are some of the kind of people that I would want to hire to be able to get this kind of work done, right? So I think just a bit on those aspects that you may want to think through. But how is it going to be beneficial for you? I mean, ask yourself these questions. Don't you want autonomy, empowerment, financial stability, and work-life balance? And I think gig work absolutely provides all of those benefits by allowing you access to new skill sets. You're not really so. I mean, if I were to really think about my career in the last 18 years, I've spent almost 15, 16 years doing one kind of job, predominantly in HR. And I kept doing the same kind of job year after year for last 15 years. And the only point progress that I would have made was the degree of expertise that I had in that particular field. But as a gig worker, you get exposure to any kind of domain and industry. And I think the more diverse the experiences you have, and more diverse skill sets you develop, it will give you the opportunity to be open to any kind of work across any geographies, and the price point is something that you determine then, right? You control the workload. You may want to choose on one day, I'm not going to work today. I have probably worked 24 hours yesterday. I'm not going to work today. I'm going to uh, turn everything off and be um, taking care of myself. I want to sleep for some time and so on, right? So that gives, I mean, gig work gives you that control of sorts as well. Quality of work is something that you decide along with the organization. Income control, you put a price point eventually as you gain expertise and experience. And work-life balance is something that you have control on. Also, think about it from a perspective on income. Um, there is a mindset that we all have that only full-time jobs give us stable incomes, but the potential that we're losing to see by not really being open to gig work or freelancing is you could do a lot more as a freelancer than probably what you could probably do as within an organizational construct, in terms of diversity, in terms of variety, in terms of even the amount of work that you want to do and the price point that you would want to choose. Some of it, of course, is driven by the economics of a particular role, but there is absolute control that you would still have in terms of what is it that you would want to do. How do you do that? Is by having the right goal, right? I mean, you need to think about, I want to earn 10 lakhs this year, and I would do anything that is possible to be done to be able to earn this money. And I think it's extremely important for us to think about that from a goal perspective. Again, work-life balance is something that we spoke, and there is a lot more benefit that you get by being a gig worker beyond this. But is that going to be possible with ease, right? I mean, we need to really start thinking about what we learn in our academic institutions and apply that into the world of micro skills, right? And when I say micro skills, where is this micro skill term coming in from? Uh, think about automobile as an industry for a moment, right? Think about any car for that matter. A car has probably a lot of, I mean, it's an assembled unit, right? Engine comes from someone, tires come from someone, the upholstery comes from some other organization. The entire OEM is a separate industry of its own. Glass comes from the organizations like Saint Gobain and all of that. And the technology that goes into cars these days comes from either iOS or Android, or probably even newer car computing organizations. And what does an organization like a Hyundai, Kia, or Maruti do today? They bring in experts from all potential areas into one assembly line, assemble that entire unit, and deliver it, right? So if you think about that, and now the world of work that we are in, now tires as an example is a micro task. The ability to manufacture tire, the ability to get the tire to the particular organization where the car has to be, or the tire has to be fixed into a car, and the entire machinery on how to fix the tires into the car is a micro task for a particular organization like a Kia, right? Now that, and the kind of work that we are today thinking about, let's say banking as a sector, or let's say engineering as a sector, there would be micro tasks for each of these kind of work that we do as well. Micro tasks like developing software and data models, executing the predictive analytics, developing algorithms require micro skills for you to do, right? And micro skills like programming, machine learning techniques, data visualization, effective communication, cloud tools require micro learning. And micro learning meaning you get all of these micro learning from a lot of organizations today, be it Upgrad, be it Udemy, be it Coursera. And it's all going to align to all the learnings that you're going through today in wherever you are in terms of the learnings and education that you're going through. So the world is not going to stop today in just an MBA or an IIT or a master's degree. It requires you to complement all of that with micro learnings, because it's the more deeper you get into the world of work tomorrow, it will require you to have micro skills, which will help you to do your micro tasks better. So tomorrow you can be an expert or a niche skill talent in the world of developing software and data models. And that there you can probably start demanding a particular price point and say, this is my rate card. I do this work. I do this for this much dollars per hour, or this is my project fee. And that's where we would want to evolve through as an individual as well. And this applies in any track, right? I mean, you could think about data science as a track, marketing as a track, network architect as a track, or software developer as a track. Choose any track of career that you would want to think about, but think about careers in micro skills as in format, because the world that you will move into will require you to start your career with and become an expert into the world of micro tasks, right? Any questions so far? I'm guessing. Okay. All right. I'll address this question at the end. Okay. I think this requires is a very interesting one that you have put in here. Um, I'll address this at the end of the session. Why is micro skill important? It gives you an edge over others because you become an expert in that field, so reduces competition, increases visibility, gives you the price advantage that you need. You differentiate yourself in the market by being an expert in that particular field domain, and it allows you an inclusion on more projects. So if data visualization is a micro skill that we are all going to work through, I think it gives every individual an opportunity to become a expert in that, and yet be niche in the kind of industry that you would want to support as well. Okay. All right. The right perspective can help you achieve bold ambition, is what we would like to see. Ask yourself these questions as we move towards the future of work. Are you being selective, focused on the opportunities? Now, um, I think the organizations today, as I said, are looking at being very specific in terms of what kind of talent that they're hiring. How much are they going to hire? What does the campus placement numbers look like? How do we really look at potential of jobs for a lot of folks? And given the number of people who pass out from several institutes in India and the ratio of jobs being available, it's extremely important that we are aware that we need to ask ourselves and be open to opportunities other than campus as well, right? So ask yourself these questions instead of, are you being focused on the opportunities? What are your options? What are the jobs that are available? What type of jobs can you apply for? I mean, at the end of the day, it's as I said, the world of jobs today is a lot more virtual than how it was a year ago, right? Today, you may be open to even explore jobs in a different geography. Like if that was a concern that you had in the past. Like there are a lot of people who say, I don't want to leave my hometown, or I want a job in a particular city only. And I think these are the questions that would really help you understand that. Where can you add value? Based on the skills that you have gathered through the learnings or any additional skills that you may gather over the next few years, where can you add value? What can you do differently? Where can you offer your service? I think is something that you may want to ask as well. What are different job roles are you equipped to handle other than what you do? Now, is it something that I'm an expert in a particular domain, but that's all I can do? or can I do anything else also, but maybe not with that proficiency that I could do the other one? Are some of the questions that you may want to ask yourself. Whom should you connect with? And the last question is all about networking, and I'll spend a few minutes on networking just in the next few slides as we speak through. So, what are the skills that you need today? I think this is, I mean, we were thinking about future skills, but this, I mean, as we speak, as I said, with COVID, a lot of future is now, right? And I think the problems that we have in our hand today in terms of COVID, in terms of the job market situation, in terms of what is possible through the entire uh, scheme of things, are extremely complex problems that we are dealing with. Can we do something different to be able to solve these problems? What different solutions can we come up with? Um, is automation a solution to some of this, or is volunteering solution to some of this? I mean, these are the questions that you may want to ask and really find answers to. Social skills. In the world which is almost virtual, we are at a risk of not being social because earlier, I think it was possible for us to be a lot more in the person, have the conversation, have the connect with this individual a lot more with ease. I would still love to shake hand, give a hug probably, but today with virtual world, that's not going to be possible. Am I at a risk of not being able to develop the social skill, right? I mean, think about my son who's 9 years old, probably uh, would have a very tough time to manage the change in the next year and a half when the world again opens up in terms of being able to do a lot more things like going to school, sitting with your school friends and colleagues. How do we do that is something that we really need to have answers to. And in the virtual world, it's even more important for you to ensure that we pay attention to the individual's needs and at times the tonality of the voice or the way this person is looking in the screen, the 16 by 9 screen that you're all looking at today. All of that is extremely important for you to know whether you're going to make it or you're not, because interviews are happening through 16 by 9 screens now, and it's extremely important for you to be able to I mean, have a gauge on whether this conversation is going in the right way or not. Project management skills. Think about COVID testing and COVID testing as a project. And I think one of the most complex projects for any demography to be able to manage. Do we know if this is going to be the right answers? If do we know the end date of the project? Do we know how much funding do we need to be able to drive the testings? Do we know if some other challenges will not come through? How can we build an agility in the entire scheme of doing things in managing the project really well? Something that we need to really think about. System skills can, like Arogya Setu app is a classic example where I think with simple 4 or 5 questions, it may not be 100% foolproof, but at least we are able to now determine whether there are people where we need to increase testing. There are containment zones that we need to create based on simple small inputs that individuals are giving. And I think how do we as individuals build that system skills to be able to get the right result. Resource management skills is another extremely important aspect. With everything again being virtual, do I have access to the right set of resources? Do I have access to right set of people? Do I know what they are going through in their life? I may have predicted all of this to be done by tomorrow. All of a sudden this guy calls up tomorrow and says, you know what, I've been tested COVID positive. What do I do? Uh, do I have enough backup in terms of being able to look at how else can I get the work done? Technical skills, cognitive abilities, physical skills. If I were to say, listening is extremely important in a world where everything is so virtual, and again a lot of data being shared through WhatsApp media, through news media, through all kind of media, and leave aside the amount of data we consume through social media sites as well. Are we really listening to the individual paying the right attention to what exactly this person is sharing, and leadership skills, right? I mean, I would say next 5 years down the line, where things will all be hopefully a lot more stabler than what it is today. Um, Anything and everything that we do today to be able to survive through the next 60, 90, 120, or 6 months will be something that's worth mentioning and documenting, because I think leaders are going to get born through situations like crisis that we are going through right now, and the kind of learnings that we will get through this is immense. And I think each one of you should really pay attention to what is it that you're learning through the what you've learned through the last 100 days, and what you're going to continue to learn in the next few months to years as well, right? Technology skills, again, is a no-brainer. I think we spoke a lot about this, but blockchain, adaptive and predictive cybersecurity, with everything being virtual, we are a lot more prone to cyber threats than ever before. How can I use NLP, visual communications, Internet of Things to be able to do my job well? Can I really look at this as a list, exhaustive list? Probably not. But this is a list worth looking at every time as you progress and make career choices for yourselves, because the world is going to ask and demand a lot of these skills going forward from its workforce. So if you haven't developed these skills already, start looking at what are the micro skills that you would want to learn, and go for the micro learnings accordingly for doing that as well. Personal branding, we spoke about this extremely important aspect in the world that we are living in. We often do not think twice before expressing ourselves in social media or any kind of digital forums. But all of what we do, of who we are, is what personal branding is all about, right? So, 7 key elements of an effective personal brand. Are we authentic? Are we asking? Are we being there for the individual, and are we being authentic to the situation? Are we unique? Is there anything very different about us? Is something that defines the personal brand. Am I an expert in something? Probably worth asking yourselves. Am I visible? We'll talk about the visibility aspect in a bit. What image am I carrying about myself? How do I communicate? Do I articulate my emotions effectively? Do I really need prompting? Am I an effective verbal communicator but a poor email writer? Um, and all of that, right? So social media presence is extremely important. Again, as I just spoke, a lot of organizations, immigration authorities are looking at data across platforms today to be able to determine if you are the right person for me to do this job. And social media presence, meaning even think about some of you also mentioned about a lot of platforms like Kaggle, Topcoder, and all of that. It's all about credibility ratings in there, right? If I have to really ensure that this guy is the right guy to be able to do the job, I need to know how he is, not only with what he does as work, but also how he is more from a perspective of what his views are, what how he expresses himself otherwise, and all of that. So all of that will build a very strong credibility for yourself. And I think personal branding is a non-negotiable in the digital age that we are all living in, because the word of mouth spreads like a wildfire. And I think it's important that you all pay a lot of attention to this. So how do you increase credibility? I think about this more from a perspective like, if you were to be a gig worker tomorrow on any of the platform, how ethical are you? How trustworthy are you? How competent are you? Consistent in terms of the services that you're offering? Are you genuine? Are you sincere? Are you respectful? Are you accountable? And are you honest? And I think all of that is work ethic that we all should probably think about going forward, right? It's not something that I can do something. don't think about this as an entry point, right? I mean, think about this more as uh, uh, gig work for me as being more like if I were to say IPL selection or auction, and if you were an IPL team, I mean IPL sportsman, think about this. Uh, I would pay any dollar value to get you into my team if you are able to show your credibility. And if you're a good bowler, if you're a good batsman, if you're a good wicket keeper, if you're a good fielder, all of that aside, but are you credible enough to be able to get onto the team and perform well? And I think that is a non-negotiable today because it's not just about playing for an Mumbai Indians today. You could probably be picked to play for Delhi Daredevils as well, or you could be picked for Chennai Super Kings as well. But you could either get picked by other teams or you can probably get dropped as well. And if you don't want to get dropped, I think it's extremely important that we pay attention to building a strong credibility because the future of getting selected to do the job on the platforms is all about credibility building and how many of the ratings that you have. Think about this simply, right? I mean, if you were to get book a cab today and if you were to be assigned a cab driver with 1 star rating, you probably would cancel the cab and want someone else to come in with a 3.75 or 4.25 rating. So I think through that. Uh, just a few tips for all of you. I know and I have interacted with a lot of students, even in general, in the last 100 days myself. Uh, it's not an easy time. We completely understand the challenges that we are all going through, but do not let this carry you down in terms of not allowing you to focus. So focus on your personal well-being. Health is extremely important. And when I say health, it also includes mental health. Set your goals. It's extremely important for you to have a goal for the next 3 to 6 to 9 months, as much as there is an uncertainty in whatever is going through. It could mean that it could be a goal like I want to get 2 new courses that I would want to learn for, or I want to pick up my hobby. I would start blogging. I would probably reduce weight, whatever. I mean, it could be a goal that you would want to keep yourself accountable for. Set the goal and work through it, right? Um, what is your next big idea? In the world of work that we are moving towards, it's all about ideation, but also idea that is sustainable. So, what is the big idea that you're going to come up with, which is something that you can sell? What are the ways you need to think about upskilling for being able to become a better seller of the idea? Pursue a hobby, look for possible ways to monetize it. If you're good with photography, probably look at selling some of the good photographs that you click. If you're good with singing, probably become a YouTube star, I would say. Um, Stay away from distractions, extremely important in times like we are going through, and anything could be a distraction. All your notifications from the apps, news channels, Netflix, YouTube, or Amazon Prime, everything is a distraction today. As long as you have the control on the filters that you would want to put to be able to allow you to be staying focused, do that. Find ways to study online together as much as possible. Use collaborative tools like Microsoft Teams, which is probably not as expensive, but find ways to be together in even in isolation that we are all going through right now. Or if you're able to go through to college, nothing like it. Schedule virtual get-togethers with friends. Again, something that you could try. I can say that in the last 100 days, in my 20 years of career or 18 years of career that I have been working and my school education, college education, and all of that, I've done about 10 reunions so far, and it's always so good to meet and speak to friends who you've studied with in 10th standard, 12th standard, or colleagues you have worked with in 15 years ago, and all of that. So do that. I think it's extremely important. People would always benefit through hearing something from you. So as long as you're doing that, I think you will be able to stay motivated. Just about GigNow. So we run a program in EY, which is GigNow, where what we do is try to, as I said, we try to onboard people for short-term gigs across various functions and service lines. These could be assignments that could be for internships, or it could be gig assignments, and could be for 3 to 6 months. And you could probably get access to live projects. It's not that we give dummy projects if you're a gig worker. Internships may be at times virtual projects, which could be a trial of, okay, get this data done and kind of a thing. But if you're a gig worker, you get access to doing real-time client work. You could get access to world-class learning solutions. We have partnerships and a lot of catalogs of learnings that we offer. Get world-class salaries and benefits for our program. But most importantly, you get to be part of the next generation workforce. And I think if I were to say one thing that I'm really proud about is my entire team is people on gig, and they really cherish and enjoy working with us. And I think that's something that we are going to promote a lot more than what we have done so far. So that's, I think, all about it for today in terms of my presentation. I am open to take any questions now. Oh, there are so many. All right, Aparna asks, as data analytics and content writing freelancer, I have often faced issues having to be jack of all trades. And I've also felt that it could be game of extremes. Sometimes you get a lot of gigs, sometimes you don't. How can we leverage freelance platforms like Upwork and or social media networks to ensure continuous supply of work? Also, client always expects minor fixes at the last minute free of cost. How can we draw the line there and handle situations without losing a client? Really good question. I really appreciate you asking this one, because I completely understand the challenges that a gig worker or a freelancer goes through. Let me break it down into 2 or 3 parts. So the first part of the question is, how can you avoid being jack of all trades? So I would say, in the formative years of you as a gig worker, or for that matter, any career that you pick, this is a struggle that everyone has to go through, because you're now trying to come to the ways of getting yourself established into a particular field, right? And till you find your feet, you will have to go through a lot of these trials and tests, and it's okay to be, I would say, failing. So develop an agile mindset is what my recommendation would be. And when I say agile mindset, agility is all about you having the right sort of capability, confidence, and be willing to learn fast, fail better, and learn better, right? Um, there will be ups and downs, peaks and valleys. I think we need to really have a good log of what did we learn out of this entire experience. So that's what I would say, more from one perspective on it's okay to fail, number one, right? Number two is, how can I ensure continuous supply of work? Now, continuous supply of work would depend on two major aspects. One, what is the what is the overall market scenario, right? I mean, there could be market scenarios that may probably have a challenge in terms of, like lockdown was one such scenario where it probably completely shut every kind of economic activity. So that could probably have an impact. So be aware of what the business cycles are, and how does that impact the work that you do. The second aspect is, of course, your own ability to, and probably also credibility in terms of being available to get the work done. How credible have you made yourself in platforms like Upwork and all of that? It's extremely important that you keep working towards improving your credibility. It's extremely important that you apply principles of digital marketing to be able to get to newer platforms and get more kind of work. So in formative years of your experience, I think it's the I would say the drive and the persistence and the perseverance is absolutely important. So do not lose hope. And I think these are great learnings that sometime, maybe 5, 10 years down the line, you will feel proud of what you just did in these years. Now, the aspect of minor fixes in the last minute, I think that applies everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's more of a freelancing aspect of it. Every client expects some of these smaller things to be resolved without having to really raise an invoice for it. uh, I think you need to start tracking the element of how much time and effort are you spending on doing this. And maybe one of the times when you have done a lot more, or if you see a lot more uh, uh, becoming a habit from a particular client, just sound it off once and say that, you know what, I mean, the last several times you've always made me do these checks, and I've, you know what, I just kept a track of this. I've been spending at least 20% of my time on the project for making these fixes. uh, could we try to make this part of the scope where it is also chargeable? So get creative. It's okay to sound off these aspects to the client once in a while, but you can do that only if you are very confident of the fact that the client really likes you and your work. And consider this as the investment that you're putting in from your own pocket for now. So now teaching as freelancing has been on the rise. What are your views on the same? I think, see, if you look at the challenges that we have in India, the population size that we are, and the ratio of our population to the kind of jobs that are required in numbers. So teachers are required high in number. We don't have them as many. Police machinery is required high in number. We don't have them as many. Judiciary is required high in number. We don't have them as many. COVID has taught us medical staff is required high in number. We don't have as many. And all of that is going to continue to have a negative impact on a lot of things that we do time and again, right? But just take an example of medical fraternity right now, right? I mean, hospitals do not have beds right now. How did we solve for it? Like, okay, hospitals do not have enough beds, but we need beds. What do? We go and find, negotiate with five-star hotels to be able to give us place where we typically give them beds on for a particular fee. So a lot of people opened up their five-star hotels or whatever potential place that was available for rent to be accommodative to the patients, right? Which is nothing but a kind of freelancing mindset. So teaching will have a lot of freelancing as well, because we don't have as many teachers in the market, and it will continue to see a lot more growth. You got to really ask yourself, if you want to go that path, what exactly would you want to be as an expert on, right? Are you going to be expert on a particular topic, subject, in a particular geography, and all of that, right? So for example, my wife is a music teacher. She used to teach students in a particular location where there were 20, 30 students that used to come into that location every Sunday. When the lockdown was announced, she had to go digital. Now she does a lot more classes for a lot more students through collaborative tools like Zoom. And I think that just opens up a lot of opportunities. So it also improves your ability to earn a lot more, because you're not trying to put all the eggs in one basket, but now trying to be a lot more global in view, in terms of doing business. With gig gaining momentum, and as data gets handled by people who serve company for a very short period of time, yeah, data security is a concern. How do you think companies could maintain, improve their security protocols? I think there is a lot of innovation happening in this already. And this was not to do with gigs. I mean, data security was always a concern, and with remote working is going to be a lot more challenging with the kind of cyber threats that we all are going through. So both are not related to itself in terms of gig and data. Um, So I would say a lot of innovation will continue to happen in making sure that your data is not being lost, or there is no cyber threat or attack on the kind of data that you're going through. And Gig probably will have to comply through all of that at some point of time. It's not so much about people who handle the data, right? So think about this. Um, I would say if I'm an employee, um, I'm anyways vulnerable in terms of looking at data. But as a gig worker, uh, would I want to risk my entire career for making one stupid mistake of fiddling with an organization's data? This is exactly like an Uber driver trying to take a passenger and misbehave with that individual, because he knows that once he does that, his chances of getting back to be a driver on Uber is gone, right? I mean, he would never risk his entire career for mm, on the aspect of misbehaving on with his passengers. So it's nothing to do with gig workers and gig mindset to be able to really think about worrying about data security as such. Data security is a separate issue which we are all trying to address. And I would say gig workers are better off in terms of handling data with a lot more care compared to others in general, because they are literally putting everything on the line um, compared to others. I mean, they have a lot more at stake if they were to not deal with the data well. What does the workflow look like for determining pay rate for gig workers from an employer's perspective? It purely depends on what is the maturity of the organization. So, have I moved away from role based gigs to task based gigs? If I have an experience of task based gigs already in my organization, I would break down the entire pricing into a smaller task or a project. And I think that is what will determine the pay rate of a gig worker. You could probably take experience of having done some of these gigs elsewhere and start quoting as your pay rate. And you could either get paid a lot more, or you could probably get paid a little lesser based on what you have as a pay rate for yourself, based on the organization that you're going to pick your gig with. Currently, platforms where people available for these gigs for themselves, companies can connect with them, or is the market fragmented? Scope for consolidation? Also, if you could highlight about I already highlighted data confidentiality issues. So there are a lot of platforms, my dear friend, and you can look at Upwork, Topcoder, depending on I think what your background is. You could look at a lot of these platforms that are open and available for you to pick up gigs. It is still evolving. I don't think it will be. I mean, I don't think we will ever get to a stage where we can say that yes, this is it, right? I mean, it's going to be an evolution like everything else. Everyone wants to play a role into this field. It will continue to evolve. A lot more organization will come up with their own talent marketplaces like us with GigNow. The question is, it's very simple, right? We had Foodpanda earlier, then came Zomato, then came Swiggy. Um, they all coexist today, but eventually we go and probably book food orders based on what my choice of food is, what my experience of getting the food delivered has been with a particular partner, and whether am I going to get the discounted pricing or not. Apply the same logic here as well. You would always have multiple platforms that are available. As a gig worker, you may want to really look at who's paying you well, who's giving you the right experience and the exposure, and yet you can coexist on all three platforms potentially. Uh, what are the quality check mechanisms as an organization has to put in place for hiring freelancers? And what is your opinion about quality of gig workers available in India? So Rakshit, the if you were to ask me if there is a scientific way of looking at quality, I think a lot of digitization of selection process is happening even as we speak. A lot more um, rigor is being put on making the process a lot more virtual, which includes how do you test people for their body language, the way they are articulating their thoughts, um, what what comes out of that entire conversation and all of that, or coding tests if you are a coder. What is the quality of coding that you do? Or if you're a content writer, we'll give you assignments to be able to check whether you can do this job for us or not. So all of these are part of the regular selection criteria as well, but there is a lot of scope to innovate in this field as well to see how do I make the hiring decision pretty quick. Can I today look at and a credibility rating will of course play a huge role in this space as well. Um, Again, look at it from a Uber cab booking experience. I have 4 categories of cars or 5 categories of cars that I can get. I that defines my rate. That defines my wait time as well. So if I need an SUV, typically the rate is higher, and also the time that I would need to time that this person would take to come here will be slower as well. So the future of selection for gigs will be on the basis of your credibility rating, your pay rate, your availability. So are you available to join me in next 2 days or one day or now? And the aspect of what do your other engagement clients say about you? So your feedback. So if you have really good things written on your profile, probably you get selected pretty quickly. Of course, you will go through typical couple of rounds of interviews and all that as well. The quality of gig workers is an evolution. I think each one of us need to really sign up for this ourselves to be able to say, I want to really look at being a gig worker myself. A lot of people are voluntarily and involuntarily moving towards gig workers, and I think the more the public shifts into that mode and mindset, the more the confidence that organizations typically get to be able to hire people on gig. And I think then it becomes a lot more um, easier, flexible demand and supply that than what it is today. I mean, today, if I want to hire people on gig, probably the talent pool is not available or is available in a different geography. But probably today with remote working, all of that is possible. So a lot of work going to happen in that space as well. Most of the organizations invest a lot of time and effort in training individuals and aligning them to organizational values and expectations. In such case, hiring freelancers from time to time, even when require much time and effort, how will organization cope with this rapidly changing environment? I mean, do we all have a choice? I mean, that's one question that we need to ask ourselves, right? Think about it from two perspectives. One, of course, the organization wants to have the right set of people to be able to do the work. But you, as an individual, as someone who comes and works for organizations today, what do you want? You want a better work life. You want diverse experiences. You want better learning proposition, better career proposition, a better level of engagement, and all of that, right? So I would say many organizations today are not aligned with what the workforce of future or workforce of today wants. And I think there is a lot of change management happening through that any which ways. And there is an effort in creating a lot of sense of belonging with an individual, no matter who the person is, no matter what the background of that individual is, whether he's a gig worker or an full-time professional. I want him or her to be treated the same way that I would treat anyone for that matter. So treat them with respect for the value that they bring onto the table and all of that, right? I don't need really the element of differentiation there between a gig worker and a full-time hire. Number one. Number two, uh, as such, if you see, my business cycles are shifting very dynamically, right? What was relevant for me on 1st of Jan 2020, on 25th July is not relevant because COVID has changed a lot of things for us. So I need to be a lot more agile in terms of being adaptable to the business shifts and also the demographic shifts. So the workforce today requires a lot more differentiated approach. And then it doesn't matter whether you're a full-time worker or a gig worker. As long as I'm giving you the right set of experiences, I think it makes sense for you any which ways, right? So I would say it's not a choice that any organization has today whether they can control and say, you know what, I would not hire gig workers, because like it or not, most of the organizations, because of several factors, would be hiring gig workers and need to adapt to what is it that they need to do differently to be able to get the right set of experiences for you all. Most of the organizations, so that's done. Hi, sir. Can you share opportunities, product or can explore? You can look at our website, gignow.com. Likewise, there are a lot of other websites that are available similarly for the product owner. LinkedIn is a phenomenal platform for you to look at what jobs are available. Upwork is, and so on. So I think you can look at those websites to be able to see what more you can find. With the rise in freelancers, how can leaders, managers ensure same or even better team building and bonding compared to conventional situations? So there is a wonderful philosophy, and there is a book as well which calls, I think the book name is Crew Resource Management or Cockpit Resource Management, and it's available on Amazon as well. So what it says is, for the flights that are typically international flights, the probability of one individual working with another is very, very little. So nowhere I mean, it's very rare that the pilot and the entire crew would be the same for um, the same flight, going from point A to point B. So the entire element of forming, storming, norming, and performing has to be at its peak, right? So no matter who the pilot is, no matter who the attendant is, no matter who the ground staff is, no matter who the engineer is, I need to be able to learn to uh, form, storm, norm, perform a lot more better any which ways. This kind of training, which is ramping up and ramping down, is now getting percolated into a lot of organizations these days, and I think organizations will adapt to this newer generation of workforce, because at the end of the day, again, as I said, even in my earlier comment, it's a non-negotiable, and I think we need to adapt ourselves as an organization as well to be able to make it open for people from all kind of backgrounds and all kind of employment models to come and work with us. How can we provide labor benefits on gig economy without any? So I think labor benefits is, for at least for India, is a given, because depending on what model you are in, you could probably be on a salaried model where you get paid, and that's mandated by the Contract Labor Act for you to get paid the PF and all the other statutory benefits as well. But if you're an independent consultant, which who is getting into an agreement with the individual on a price point basis, I think it's, as our Prime Minister says, it's time for India to become self-reliant, and we need to really start looking at insurance options for ourselves, be it life insurance, health insurance, or be it all other social security elements. And I think we should try and carve out a portion of our compensation or rate cards towards benefits like these ourselves as well. And I think it's the need of the hour. We need to change our mindset as much as we would want to really think that there will be support from government. A lot of onus is also on us. Uh, I know I overshot the time, so thank you for the insights. Thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure to be talking to you all. I really hope that this session was helpful to you. Um, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. Feel free. I know a lot of you already added me onto your connections. I would encourage each one of you to go and check for opportunities and openings on gignow.com. And if you think there is anything that is relevant, give me a shout. And all I can say is, It's a challenging time, no brainer. We all understand that. Do not lose hope. We all have seen this. No matter what the crisis is, humanity overcomes everything, and we will overcome this situation as well. So stay positive, stay COVID negative, but stay positive, stay happy, stay focused. And I think whatever you're doing right now, I think get that done and look for exciting opportunities elsewhere, because you get the opportunities or you create the opportunities. These are the only two options that you have. So just work on either of it and you will be successful.
Uh, Thank you so much, sir, for such an enlightening session today. The insights that you shared regarding how the pandemic is turning out to be a health and an economic crisis and its impact upon the workforce, how
Mm.
the future of work is taking shape, and the different types of collaborative economy have been really informative. Your views on
Sure.
the need to have a right mindset and skill set, the benefits of freelancing, the requisite skill sets for the future, and the importance of personal branding have really given us a lot of food for thought. Thank you for answering all of the questions and sparing your invaluable time to interact with the students. We were delighted to hear from you today and hope that this will be the start of a lasting relationship with you and your
Absolutely.
organization. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much, sir.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.